America's #1 show on pop culture and politics. This is the Michael Medved Show.
And another great day in this greatest nation on God's green earth. A great day for me to say, I told you so. Sometimes I think it's important for people to acknowledge when they're wrong. And other times I think it's important for people to acknowledge when they were right, when I was right in this case. And nearly everybody else in my own little world of talk radio was absolutely wrong. What am I talking about? I'm talking TARP, which is being wrapped up right now, what is called the bailout. It's actually two different bailouts. The Bush Bailout that was structured by Secretary of the Treasury Hank Paulson and pushed hard by President Bush and initially turned down by Congress, and then they brought it back and it was approved by Congress. They're wrapping that up. It's literally 2 years since it was initiated. And remember, people said it was a price tag of $700 billion. That was what it was officially advertised. That's what they authorized. There is now a report from the Treasury, formal report from the Treasury on the TARP program. And as far as the TARP program is concerned, what's the actual cost? Is it $700 billion? No. $500 billion? No. $100 billion? Not even close. They initiated this Congressional Budget Office guessed that the TARP would end up costing $66 billion. That was a couple of months ago. Well, now it turns out because more and more money has been paid back, they've made more and more money in interest. The total cost of TARP will be at most $29 billion. And guess what? If you actually read the Treasury report, if you take out the added stuff that Obama did, right? You just do what Bush authorized, the TARP that I supported, and I was proud to support it, and I'm very proud that I supported it now. The government would actually be in profit from the Troubled Asset Relief Program. It was not the end of the world. It was the right thing to do. You will not find a serious economist, not one, who will tell you that our economic situation would be better today if we had let all of the banks and the AIG and the rest of it collapse, especially not now with those companies repaying the money that the government invested in them. 1-800-955-1776. Just to give you some flavor of these final closing reports on TARP, one of the chief economic sources of forecasting is Moody's Analytics. And the chief economist for Moody's Analytics, a guy named Mark Zandi, he said, yes, I think it was a great success. The bank bailout part of TARP was an astounding success. It couldn't have gone any better. Now, why does he say that? Because in the bank bailout part of TARP, it didn't cost the taxpayer anything. The government actually made money. And it is so important that people understand this. One of the things that I hate, and I very rarely say that I hate anything. Hate is a tough word. But I do hate this. I hate light rail. You know that. But we'll get to that story in a moment. 1-800-955-1776. One of the other things I hate is the deliberate attempt by some people to confuse the stimulus and the TARP program. The TARP program, let me give you a couple of crucial differences. First of all, the TARP program was Bush. The stimulus program was Obama. The TARP program was supported by most Republicans. Not all, but most Republicans in the House and Senate. The stimulus program was supported by no Republicans in the House, not even one of them, and only 2 Republicans in the Senate, Snowe and Collins of Maine. The other difference, and it's crucial, is the stimulus program was a permanent growth in government. It was not a one-shot thing. A lot of these stimulus programs, they are now online as part of the government budgets, right? And they're going to be added to. There was no expectation, no promise, no attempt to get the money back. And as a matter of fact, the supervision of the stimulus has been virtually non-existent. The TARP program was designed to get the money back. And now it turns out, despite all of the gloom and doom and all of the horrors and all of the hand-wringing from people who oppose that program, yeah, we are getting the money back. The parts that we're not getting back are the parts that Obama initiated using the TARP money. What parts? In particular, the expenditures for General Motors and Chrysler, where he used TARP funds, and this really stupid and really costly effort to write down a bunch of mortgages. In other words, that was an Obama thing, and that's why it's $29 billion negative. Here is the story. The Treasury Department today announced that it expects to lose $29 billion total on the federal bailout stemming from the financial crisis, with most of the losses coming in its housing finance program and the auto rescue, both Obama stuff. In a report released yesterday, the administration said it expected a $17 billion loss from its investments in General Motors and Chrysler and the auto finance companies, as well as a $46 billion loss from housing programs like the mortgage modifications program known as the Home Affordable Modification Program. That's all Obama. Okay, so that's a total of, let's see, do the math, $63 billion in losses. So what about the rest of TARP? The rest of TARP operated at a profit. That's why the total loss, there's $34 billion of profit in there. The new figures include profits that offset some of the losses. Recently, the Congressional Budget Office put the cost at $66 billion, but it's gone down. The Treasury arrived at its figures by adding in profits that it expects to receive on shares of AIG stock. Those shares were given to the Treasury by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, and the Treasury expects they will yield a $22 billion profit. The bright spot, according to the report, were the bank paybacks. Nearly 80% of the money given to banks has already been paid back. The Treasury also received $26.8 billion from banks through interest payments on the investments, as well as sales of warrants the government received in the banks. It is impossible for any responsible American citizen to look at this thing and confuse the rescue program, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, to confuse that with the stimulus program, where there is a brand new scandal concerning Obama's stimulus. There is all the difference in the world. The other story about this that I think is crucial for people to understand is the fact that there's no inspection of where the stimulus money went. The White House has said, oh, yeah, we're going to have strict accountability. They have now located $162 million of stimulus funds where no one knows where they are. They just went missing. That is not true for the TARP program with a Treasury report yesterday. This is why it's so important for conservatives, honestly, for conservatives to understand the difference between a rescue package and a stimulus package, between something where you take money from government to help rescue business, and then you take money from business to help grow government. Those are the opposite kind of program. Why? I'll explain it and take your calls coming up. No, I don't think that as a general rule that government should use public funds, should use taxpayer funds to support private business institutions. I think it's wrong. However, there are such things as emergencies. And we had an emergency with the savings and loan debacle back in the late 1980s, early 1990s. And I think that the government did the right thing to rescue these savings and loan institutions to prevent literally hundreds of millions of people from losing their savings. And it was a very, very serious matter. Maybe not hundreds of millions, tens of millions. It would have been a lot of people who got hurt. And it would have been a devastating body blow to the economy. That's nothing compared to what would have happened. Lehman Brothers had collapsed. You may remember that Bear Stearns had collapsed. Merrill Lynch was teetering on the verge of collapse. The entire financial system in this country, which you may not like it, but it is necessary for the functioning of our free market economy, was on the verge of collapse. It was in Great Britain as well. And Britain did largely the same thing. They didn't need to in Canada. Canadian banks behaved much better, and they didn't have the same kind of problem. Is it appropriate that the people who ran this financial system into the ground should pay more consequences than they appear to have paid? A lot of them did. I mean, there are people who are facing legal problems, people who lost their jobs, people who got thrown out of corporate suites. A lot of that happened. But the truth of the matter is that stepping in to transfer temporarily as a loan, as an investment, some public funds into private enterprise, that private enterprise then returns, is the opposite of what the stimulus package did. And this is why I know there are a lot of folks, Tea Party folks and many others, who are angry at the whole idea of Washington going deeper and deeper and deeper into debt. And by the way, I think the TARP program would be unsupportable if it really did involve the loss of $700 billion of taxpayer money. It didn't. It has now been announced at the Treasury that at the maximum, TARP is going to cost taxpayers $29 billion. And all of that is because of what Obama did with the money. It's not what Bush or Paulson wanted to do. Obama took some of the money that had been authorized by Congress and used it for the auto companies, and then used it for this mortgage program, which hasn't worked at all and hasn't saved people's mortgages and hasn't saved people's homes and hasn't really helped the housing industry.